I was standing in my own hallway at 7:30 on a Tuesday morning in February, holding my coat and purse, waiting for my son to finish a phone call in the living
You
room so
missed
I could
it.
walk through to leave for my doctor's appointment. The house was quiet except for Daniel's voice.
I
He
know, it
was
was
laughing
just too
about
funny.
something. The conversation sounded casual, not urgent. But I stood there anyway, coat buttoned, scarf wrapped, keys in my gloved hand, waiting. Outside, fresh snow covered the driveway. I'd shoveled it the day before, but another 3 inches had fallen overnight. The early morning light was gray and flat, the kind of February light that makes everything look tired. I'd been standing there for almost 6 minutes when I looked down at my feet and realized something. I was waiting for permission to walk through my own house. My house. The house I'd lived in for 32 years. The house my husband and I had bought when mortgage rates were 14% and we'd saved for 7 years for the down payment. The house where I'd raised my son, buried my husband, and built a life. And I was standing in the hallway like a guest waiting to be acknowledged. That's when I understood. Something had shifted, quietly, gradually, without announcement or discussion. I wasn't living here anymore. I was staying here. My name is Helen Marie Carson. I'm 64 years old. I was born in Sudbury, moved to Kitchener when I was 23, and I've lived in this house since 1993. My husband Paul and I bought it the year we got married. Well, the year after. We got married in 1992, spent a year saving every penny, and bought this house in March of 1993 for $168,000. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, finished basement, small backyard with a maple tree Paul planted the week we moved in. Paul died 6 years ago, heart attack, sudden. He was 63 years old. We'd just started talking about retirement, about maybe selling the house and getting something smaller, maybe a condo near the lake, something easier to maintain. After he died, I stayed. The house was paid off. We'd made the last mortgage payment 3 years before Paul passed. I had his pension survivor benefits, not much, but enough, and my own modest savings from working as a school librarian for 28 years at Eastwood Elementary. I retired 2 years after Paul died. I was 60, and I couldn't imagine standing in that library every day without coming home to tell him about it. So I retired early, took the reduced pension, and learned to live quietly. The house was too big for one person. Everyone told me that. My sister Barbara told me that. My friend Joyce from book club told me that. Even my neighbor Ellen mentioned it once or twice. You should downsize, Helen, get a nice condo, less maintenance, more social. But I couldn't. This was home. This was where Paul and I had breakfast every Sunday for 26 years. This was where we'd hosted Christmases and birthday parties. This was where we'd watched our son Daniel grow up, go to university, become an adult. I couldn't leave. So I stayed, and I learned to be alone. I have one son, Daniel Paul Carson. He's 39 years old. He was born in 1986, 3 years after we bought the house. He's my only child. We tried for more, but it didn't happen. Daniel was our miracle, Paul used to say. Daniel was married for 6 years to a woman named Courtney. They met in university, got married when they were 28, divorced when they were 34, no kids. No dramatic reason for the split, Daniel said, just grew apart. After the divorce, Daniel threw himself into work, marketing, digital advertising, something with social media campaigns and brand strategy. I never fully understood it, but he made good money. Over 80,000 a year, I think. He lived in a nice apartment in downtown Toronto, modern building with a gym and a concierge. We talked maybe twice a month before he lost his job. Quick phone calls. Hey mom, just checking in, how are you doing? Everything okay with the house? 5 minutes of pleasantries. I'd tell him I was fine, he'd tell me work was busy. We'd promised to get together soon for lunch. We rarely did. I didn't mind. He was building a life. That's what you want for your children. Independence, success, a life of their own. He lost his job on October 18th, a Thursday. He called me that evening. Hey mom. Daniel, what a nice surprise. Twice in 1 week. Yeah, listen, I need to tell you something. My stomach dropped. When your adult child calls with that tone, you think health, cancer, accident, something terrible. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Well, nothing terrible. I lost my job today. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. What happened? Budget cuts. The whole marketing department got eliminated. Not just me, everyone. They're restructuring. That's awful. It's okay. I've got severance, 3 months' salary. And I've already updated my resume. I'll find something new by the new year. The market's good right now. I'm sure you will. You're talented. Thanks, Mom. I just wanted to let you know. I'll keep you posted. November came, then December. Every time I asked how the job search was going, Daniel said the same thing. Lots of interviews, nothing solid yet, but I'm optimistic. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He called me 2 days after Christmas, December 27th. I remember because I was taking down the small tree I'd put up in the living room, just a 4-foot tree, nothing elaborate. It felt wrong to celebrate Christmas in a big way without Paul. Mom, I need to talk to you about something. There it was again. That tone. What is it? My lease is up at the end of February, and with the job situation, I can't really justify paying $2,000 a month for an apartment I'm barely in. I've been thinking, would it be okay if I stayed with you for a bit? Just temporarily, until I get back on my feet. Of course, I said immediately. I didn't even think about it. Of course you can stay here. Just for a couple of months, 3 at most. I've got some promising leads. Something should come through by spring. Daniel, this is your home. You can stay as long as you need. Thanks, Mom. I really appreciate it. I'll try not to be in your way. You could never be in my way. He arrived on Friday, February 3rd, evening, around 6 o'clock. The snow had been falling since noon, heavy and wet. By the time he pulled into the driveway, there were at least 4 inches on the ground. He was driving his Audi, silver. He'd leased it 2 years ago. I have to look successful in my industry, he'd explained when he got it. I didn't understand leasing, but I nodded. I met him at the door. He looked tired, thinner than I remembered. His hair was longer, touching his collar. Hey, Mom. He hugged me quickly. He smelled like expensive cologne and cold air. Come in, come in. You must be freezing. We carried his things inside, not much, 2 large suitcases of clothes, a garment bag with suits, a box of kitchen items, his coffee maker, some fancy knives, his laptop bag, a box of books. Traveling light, he said, stomping snow off his boots in the entryway. Most of my furniture's in storage. Didn't want to clutter up your space. You're not cluttering anything. I'm happy to have you here. And I was. Genuinely happy. The house had been so quiet for so long. Every room echoed. I'd started talking to myself just to hear a voice. Having Daniel here felt like having family again, like the house was waking up. He took his old bedroom upstairs, the same room he'd grown up in. I'd changed things over the years, repainted it a soft gray instead of the blue it had been when he was a teenager, replaced the twin bed with a double, hung different curtains, but it was still his room. This is perfect, Mom, thanks. That first week felt like a gift. We had dinner together most nights. I'd cooked nothing fancy, just the meals I knew he liked. Spaghetti and meatballs, pot roast, chicken with rice. We'd eat at the dining room table, something I hadn't done in months. I usually ate standing at the kitchen counter. He'd tell me about his job search, the interviews he had lined up, a promising lead with a startup, a connection who might have something opening up. I'd tell him about small things. My book club was reading The Midnight Library. Ellen next door was having her kitchen renovated. The library was doing a winter reading program for kids. He'd nod and smile and ask follow-up questions, and I felt seen in a way I hadn't felt since Paul died. It was nice, more than nice. It felt like having my son back. The changes started in the second week. Small things at first, so small I barely noticed. Daniel asked if he could set up a workspace in the den. I need somewhere to take video calls for interviews, somewhere that looks professional. My bedroom's too cramped and you can see the bed in the background. Of course, use whatever you need. The den was on the main floor, just off the living room. It had been Paul's space. His books were still on the shelves. History, biography, Louis L'Amour westerns he'd collected for years. His reading chair was still in the corner by the window, brown leather worn soft from decades of use. I went in there sometimes, not often, maybe once a week. I'd sit in Paul's chair and look at his books and feel close to him for a little while. But Daniel needed it for interviews. That made sense. He needed to look professional. He needed to get a job. The den had good light and a neutral background. Do whatever you need to do, I told him. He rearranged things, moved the reading chair to the basement. It doesn't look good on camera, Mom. Too casual. He angled the desk so the bookshelf was visible behind him. Books look professional. He brought in a better lamp, hung a plain white sheet behind the desk so the background is clean and simple. The den didn't look like Paul's space anymore. But it was temporary. Daniel would get a job, move out, and I could move things back. In the third week, Daniel mentioned the internet. Mom, your internet is really slow. I'm trying to upload portfolio work and it's taking forever. Do you mind if I upgrade the plan? I'll pay the difference. You don't have to pay, just do whatever you need. I was paying $45 a month for basic internet. I only used it for email and the occasional recipe search. I didn't need anything faster. Daniel upgraded to the premium plan, installed a new router with lights that blinked constantly. Suddenly, my monthly bill was $93. He never mentioned paying the difference again. Week 4, late February. The snow was still heavy and the days were brutally cold, the kind of cold that makes your lungs hurt when you breathe. Daniel asked about the living room. Mom, would you mind if I rearrange things a bit? The couch is blocking the natural light, and I read this article about how environment affects mental health when you're job hunting. Good light is really important. I suppose that's fine. The couch was where it had been for 15 years. Paul and I had picked it out together. Dark blue fabric, deep seats. We'd spent countless evenings on that couch watching TV, reading, just being together. Daniel moved it to the opposite wall, moved the coffee table Paul had built in his workshop, brought in a different chair from the basement, rearranged the bookshelf. The living room didn't look like my living room anymore. It looked like a magazine photo, clean, modern, impersonal. But it was temporary. A few more weeks and Daniel would find something. I could move everything back then. By early March, Daniel still hadn't found a job. The market's brutal right now, Mom. Everyone's posting positions, but no one's actually hiring. It's all just for show. I've had 6 interviews and nothing. Something will come through, honey. I know. It's just frustrating. I'm overqualified for some positions, underqualified for others. It's a weird spot to be in. You'll find the right fit. He was getting discouraged. I could see it. He stayed in his room more, came down for meals, but went right back up. He stopped telling me about interviews. I wanted to help, but I didn't know how. In mid-March, Daniel started having friends over. The first time was a Friday night. He asked that morning at breakfast. Some friends are in town tonight. Would it be okay if they came by? Just for a few hours. Of course. This is your home. 3 people arrived around 7. 2 men and a woman. They brought beer and pizza. I met them briefly. Daniel introduced them as Josh, Kevin, and Sarah, people he'd worked with at his old job, and then I went upstairs to give them space. I could hear them laughing, talking, music playing, not loud but present. I stayed in my bedroom reading until I heard them leave around 11. Thanks, Mom, Daniel said the next morning. I really needed that. It's been isolating being out of work. I'm glad you had fun. The Friday gatherings became regular. Every week, sometimes the same people, sometimes different ones. I'd stay upstairs, make myself scarce. I didn't want to be the mother hovering in the corner, making everyone uncomfortable. But I started to feel like a stranger in my own house. One Friday evening in late March, I came downstairs around 9 to get a glass of water. I'd been reading and my throat was dry. There were 5 people in the living room, Daniel and 4 others I'd never met. They had music playing, beer bottles on the coffee table Paul had made, pizza boxes on the couch. "Oh, hey, Mom," Daniel said when he saw me. "This is Mom. Mom, this is everyone." They nodded, smiled politely, went back to their conversation. I got my water and went back upstairs. I felt like I was interrupting. In my own house. In early April, Daniel said we needed to talk about groceries. We were having breakfast. I'd made oatmeal. Daniel was on his laptop scrolling through job postings. "Mom, I've been thinking. I don't want to be a burden, so I was thinking we should split the grocery bill. I'll cover half if you cover half. Fair?" "Daniel, you don't need to." "I insist. I'm not a kid anymore. I should be contributing. It's only right." So we started splitting groceries 50-50. Except Daniel ate more than I did. A lot more. He'd make large breakfasts, eggs, bacon, toast. He'd cook elaborate dinners, steaks, pasta with expensive sauce, vegetables I'd never buy. His friends ate our food when they came over. I was paying half for food I barely touched. But I didn't say anything. I didn't want to seem petty. He was struggling. He was trying to contribute. I should be grateful. The same week, Daniel mentioned the spare bedroom. "Mom, I was thinking I'm probably going to be here a bit longer than I originally thought. The job market's worse than I expected, and my old bedroom is kind of small. Would you mind if I took the spare room? It's bigger. I think it would be better for my mental health to have more space." The spare room. the room that had been my craft room for 8 years. After Paul died, I'd taken up quilting. It gave me something to do with my hands, something to focus on besides grief. I'd set up the spare room as my space. My sewing machine was in there, my fabric organized in clear bins, projects in various stages of completion. Where would I put my things, I asked. What about the basement? There's tons of space down there. You could set up a whole area. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floors, exposed beams, cold in winter, damp in spring. I don't know, Daniel. Mom, please, I'm really struggling here. Being in that cramped room isn't helping my mental state. I just need a little more space, just until I find something. The way he said it, the exhaustion in his voice, the vulnerability. How could I say no? I moved my sewing machine to the basement, carried down bins of fabric, set up a folding table near the furnace where the light was best. It wasn't the same. The basement was cold and unwelcoming, but it was temporary. Daniel took the spare room. Within 2 days, he'd completely transformed it. New curtains, a rug, a floor lamp. It looked like a bedroom in a catalog. 2 weeks later, he asked if his girlfriend could stay over sometimes. Girlfriend. I hadn't even known he was seeing someone. Just on weekends, he said. You won't even notice she's here. Her name was Vanessa, 28 years old, works in graphic design. She was pretty in that effortless way young women sometimes are. Straight dark hair, minimal makeup, always dressed like she was about to go to yoga. She was polite, said all the right things. Thank you for having me, Helen. Your home is beautiful. But she treated the house like it was Daniel's, like I was a visiting relative, a grandmother being tolerated. The first Saturday she stayed over, I came downstairs to find her making breakfast in my kitchen. She was wearing my apron. The one Paul had bought me as a joke 20 years ago. It said, "Kiss the cook," in faded letters. Morning, Helen. I'm making eggs. Want some? Oh, sure, thank you. I sat at my own table and let this stranger serve me breakfast in my own kitchen. She rearranged things. The spatula makes more sense over here by the stove, don't you think? She'd use my bathroom without asking, leave her makeup scattered on the counter. She'd do laundry and hang her clothes in my laundry room. One Sunday, I needed to use the upstairs bathroom, the one I'd been using for 32 years. The door was locked. I stood there waiting. After 10 minutes, Vanessa emerged in a cloud of steam and perfume. Oh, sorry, were you waiting? I didn't realize. I smiled. No problem. But it was a problem. I'd been waiting to use my own bathroom. By May, I'd started spending most of my time in my bedroom. It was easier, quieter, less complicated. Daniel had friends over more often now, not just Fridays, sometimes Wednesdays, sometimes Sundays for sports games. Vanessa was there almost every weekend. The house was full of noise and people I didn't know and conversations I wasn't part of. I'd come down for meals, make small talk, then retreat to my bedroom. I started eating dinner in my room. A bowl of soup, a sandwich, nothing that required the kitchen. I'd hear them downstairs, laughing, talking, living. And I'd sit in my bedroom, the bedroom I'd shared with Paul for 26 years, feeling like a tenant. One Saturday afternoon in mid-May, I needed something from the basement. My reading glasses. I'd left them down there near my sewing machine. I came downstairs quietly. I didn't want to interrupt whatever was happening in the living room. As I approached the basement door, I heard voices. Daniel and Vanessa were in the living room. The door was slightly open. They were talking in normal voices, not whispering, just having a conversation. I should have announced myself, should have called out, should have done something. But I heard my name, and I froze. I just don't know how to tell her, Daniel was saying. Tell her what? Vanessa asked. That I'm not leaving anytime soon. She keeps asking about interviews, about job prospects, acting like I'll be gone by summer. Well, won't you? You've been here 3 months. That's the thing. I've had offers. My hand was on the doorknob to the basement. I stopped moving. Wait, you've had offers? Vanessa sounded genuinely surprised. How many? 3. Good ones, too. One was 85,000, one was 90, one was 78, but with better benefits. Danny, why didn't you take them? Because they're not better than what I had. They're lateral moves, same level, some are even a step down. And why would I do that when I can stay here rent-free and hold out for something better? Silence. Long silence. Does your mom know? Vanessa's voice was quieter now. Know what? That you're staying here by choice now, not because you have to. She doesn't need to know. Look, she's lonely. She's been alone since Dad died. Having me here is good for her. She likes having someone around, and it's her house. She's not using most of it. What's the difference if I stay? The difference is you told her it was temporary. It is temporary, just longer temporary than she thought. Danny, look, this works out for everyone. She gets company. I get to save money and find the right position, not just any position. And honestly, long term, this setup could work. The house is paid off. It's big enough for both of us. If I can just ride this out another year or two, I'll be in a much better financial position. A year or two. My son was planning to stay for years, without telling me, while turning down jobs, while I paid for half his groceries and all his utilities and gave up my craft room and spent my evenings hiding in my bedroom so he could have his friends over in my living room. What happens when she wants her space back? Vanessa asked. Her voice had an edge now. When she realizes you're not actually looking anymore. Daniel laughed. Not cruelly, just dismissively. Like the question was absurd. She's not going to kick me out, Van. She's my mother. And technically, this is still my home, too. I grew up here. I have as much right to be here as she does. I moved my hand off the basement doorknob very carefully, very quietly. I walked back upstairs in my slippers, making no sound. I went into my bedroom and closed the door. I sat on the edge of my bed, the bed I'd shared with Paul, the bed where he'd died 6 years ago, and I felt something cold and clear settle in my chest. Not anger. Anger is hot and impulsive. This was colder, sharper. This was clarity. The next morning, Sunday, I waited until Daniel left the house. He and Vanessa went out for brunch around 10. I called my lawyer. His name is Graham Elliott. He's 63 years old, semi-retired, but still takes on select clients. He'd handled Paul's will and estate. Drew up power of attorney documents when Paul got sick. He was kind, professional, and unfailingly patient. Helen, good to hear from you. How are you doing? I'm well, Graham. I need to talk to you about something. About my house. What's going on? I told him everything. Daniel moving in temporarily. The way temporary had stretched from 2 months to 4 months with no end in sight. The furniture moved. The rooms taken over. The girlfriend who treated my home like her own. And then I told him what I'd overheard. Graham was quiet for a long moment when I finished. Helen, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. What do you want to do here? I want my house back. Do you want Daniel gone, or do you want to formalize an arrangement? I want him gone, Graham. He lied to me. He's using me. I want him out. Okay, then here's what we're going to do. We talked for almost an hour. He explained my options, my rights as the sole owner of the property, what I could do legally, what Daniel could try to fight, how to make it clean and final. It won't be pleasant, Graham warned. He's your son. He's not going to take this well. I know. And he might argue he has tenants' rights even without a formal lease. But since you can prove the arrangement was explicitly temporary, and since you've received no rent, and since he's turned down employment that would allow him to leave, we have a strong case. What do I need to do? I'll draft a formal notice, legal, official, giving him 60 days to vacate. We'll cite the original agreement, the fact that employment offers have been received and declined, and the need to return the property to its intended use. 60 days. It's the minimum legally required in Ontario for this type of situation. Trust me, it's better to do this properly than to rush it and have him claim you illegally evicted him. All right, do it. 3 days later, on a Wednesday afternoon, a courier delivered the notice to my front door. Daniel was home. He answered the door, signed for the envelope, brought it inside. I was in the kitchen making tea. I heard him open the envelope, heard papers rustling, heard silence. Then footsteps. He appeared in the kitchen doorway holding the letter. His face was pale, not angry, shocked. Mom, what is this? I turned to face him. My hands were steady. It's a legal notice, Daniel. A notice? You're kicking me out? I'm asking you to honor our original agreement. You said you'd stay temporarily until you found a job. It's been almost 4 months, and you've turned down 3 job offers. His face changed. Realization, then something harder. How do you know about the job offers? I heard you and Vanessa talking 2 weeks ago. You were in the living room. You were listening to a private conversation? I was walking through my own house. He looked down at the letter again. Read it more carefully. 60 days, you're giving me 60 days. That's what the law requires. It's in the letter. This is insane. I'm your son. I know you are, and I love you, but I'm not a hotel, and this is my home, not yours, mine. I grew up here. 30 years ago. You're 39 years old now, Daniel. You have job offers. You have options. You're choosing to stay here because it's convenient and free. His face went red now, anger finally surfacing. So you're just throwing me out? Your own son? I'm asking you to leave. There's a difference. I can't believe you're doing this. After I lost my job, after everything I've been through. You didn't lose your job, Daniel. You lost one job. And you've been offered three more. You turned them down because you decided living here rent-free was more comfortable than accepting a lateral position. That's my choice. And this is mine. He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. I thought you wanted me here. You said this was my home. It was, when you needed it. But you don't need it anymore. You're using it. Using me. And I'm done. So that's it? 60 days and I'm out? Yes. He stood there for another moment, the letter crumpled in his hand. Then he turned and walked upstairs without another word. I heard his door slam. I poured my tea and sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around the warm mug, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. The next 2 weeks were the worst. Daniel barely spoke to me. He'd come downstairs for food always when I wasn't in the kitchen and take it back to his room. He stopped eating meals with me entirely. Vanessa stopped coming over. I assumed he'd told her. The friends stopped coming over on Fridays. The house was silent in a different way. Not the peaceful silence of living alone. The tense silence of two people sharing space while pretending the other doesn't exist. I went about my routines. Book club on Tuesdays. Quilting at the library on Thursdays. Groceries on Saturday mornings. Daniel stayed in his room or left the house without telling me where he was going. Once, I passed him in the hallway. We both flattened against opposite walls to avoid touching. It was awful, but I didn't change my mind. In the 4th week, Daniel took one of the jobs, the one that paid $85,000. Graham had been right, having the legal notice made it real, made it clear I wasn't backing down. Daniel found an apartment in Guelph, smaller than his place in Toronto had been, 1 bedroom, $800 a month plus utilities. He moved out on a Saturday in early June, not the full 60 days. He left after 42. He packed his things on Friday evening. I stayed in my bedroom, listening to him move boxes, dismantle furniture, pack his life back into the car he'd have to return to the leasing company. Saturday morning, he loaded the last of it. I came downstairs to find him standing in the entryway. I guess that's everything, he said. He wouldn't look at me. Daniel, I hope you're happy. His voice wasn't angry anymore, just sad, distant. I hope this was worth it. I'm not trying to hurt you. You're my mother. You're supposed to support me. That's what mothers do. I did support you. For 4 months. I gave you a place to stay when you needed it, but you didn't need it anymore. You just wanted it. So you threw me out. I asked you to leave. Because you were taking advantage of me. And I'm allowed to say no to that. He finally looked at me. His eyes were red. I can't believe you're my mother. I can't believe you're my son. He picked up the last box, walked to his car, loaded it in the trunk. He didn't say goodbye. He got in the car and drove away. I stood in the doorway and watched him go. The June morning was warm and bright. The maple tree Paul had planted 32 years ago was full and green. I went back inside and closed the door. It's been 4 months since Daniel left. September now. The leaves on the maple tree are starting to turn. He called once in July. Short call. Asking if he'd left a box of cables in the basement. He hadn't. We don't talk now. No calls. Occasionally a text on holidays. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Thanksgiving. Short. Perfunctory. The kind of messages you send out of obligation, not affection. It hurts. I won't pretend it doesn't. But it doesn't hurt as much as standing in my own hallway waiting for permission to exist in my own home. I've reclaimed my space, moved the couch back where it belonged, put Paul's chair back in the den, moved my sewing machine back upstairs to the spare room, my room now, not the guest room. I've started quilting again. Really quilting. I'm working on a pattern I've been putting off for years. A double wedding ring. Complicated but beautiful. Ellen next door invited me to join her bridge group. We play every Monday evening now. I've started volunteering at the hospice where Paul spent his last weeks. Just a few hours a week, reading to patients, sitting with people who are alone. I'm busy now. My calendar has things written on it. Plans, commitments. For a long time after Paul died, I thought being alone meant being lonely. But I've learned there's a difference. Being alone is choosing solitude. Being lonely is feeling invisible while surrounded by people who should see you. I was lonelier when Daniel was here than I am now. Daniel thought he was being practical, using available resources. He didn't see it as taking advantage. He saw it as family helping family, as his right as my son. But he forgot something important. Love isn't a credit card you can charge against without limit. Help isn't a permanent arrangement. And the moment you stop asking and start assuming, you've crossed a line you can't uncross. I gave my son a home when he needed one. He tried to take mine. I got it back, and I'm not giving it away again. To anyone. If you're listening to this and you've ever felt like a guest in your own home, I hope you know this. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to set boundaries. You're allowed to choose yourself, even when it disappoints someone you love. Especially when it disappoints someone you love. Because love that asks you to disappear isn't really love. It's just convenience wrapped in obligation, and you deserve better than that. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there know they're not alone, that sometimes the hardest thing to do is also the right thing to do, and that your home, your real home, is the one where you don't have to wait in hallways for permission to exist. Take care of yourselves. And remember, family is supposed to be the people who make you feel most like yourself, not the people who make you feel like you're in the way. Thank you.